So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Ponytail, so let's start the series. In the shadow of the last remaining wall, two figures bearing the Uchiha clan's emblem stood amid the ruins of a fortress. Both warriors were worn out and had significantly low chakra reserves. Only one, though, was really on the verge of death. He staggered forward, drenched in blood, and felt life slipping away from him. Itachi Uchiha tapped his brother's forehead as he had done countless times before and said, "Sorry, Sasuke, this will be the last time." After saying his last words, Itachi collapsed forward, letting the darkness engulf him. But when he woke up, lying face down in some grass, death did not come for him as he had anticipated. Normally, he would have thought that this was some kind of afterlife, but the anguish he was experiencing was a clear sign that it was not. Itachi recognized the voice of the one person he had ever really detested. "Well, it seems like you've finally woken up. Good to know my skills with medical ninjutsu haven't dulled over the years." He opened his eyes to see a man sitting on a rock in front of him, dressed in an orange spiral mask with one eye hole on the right and an Akatsuki coat. Itachi scowled at Madara Uchiha, the one in charge of everything, who stood before him. Madara looked to his right and remarked, "I'm sure you're wondering why you're alive. It's not for the reasons you might think. Truth is, Itachi, I've kept you alive this long so that I might actually thank you. Please." Itachi tried to talk but was only able to cough up more blood as he considered the pain. "You see, now that Sasuke has vanquished you, there is nothing stopping me from revealing the truth to him. And unlike you, with the right incentive, I can easily convince him to do anything I desire." "You hypocrite!" In his head, Itachi yelled and tried to get up, hoping to kill the man in front of him, but his strength failed him, and he only fell back down. He was suddenly filled with rage, and the only thing he could do was look at Madara. "I applaud your efforts, Itachi, but you really should conserve your energy. All I've done is delay the inevitable. Shame you had to contract that disease, otherwise who knows? You might have actually been able to kill me. What does really surprise me though is that you're still able to see me after using your ocular powers so flagrantly. By all accounts you should be practically blind by now." He's right, Itachi thought, realizing for the first time how clear his vision was. His eyes seemed to have never deteriorated, even though he hadn't been able to see well for years. Because of the pain, he hadn't noticed it before, but now it appeared to be the only thing that mattered. "Well, I guess we can just chalk it up to you being a prodigy. After all, I've never seen someone master the Sharingan so thoroughly before in my life." He took a moment to reflect. Madara finally turned back to Itachi and got to his feet, saying, "And now Itachi Uchiha, we must part and say our farewells." The air around the two changed instantly, as if a lot of chakra was being channeled. "Oh, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. If I wanted that so badly I would have just let you die back at the fortress. Instead, I'll show you the true power of the Sharingan." Even in his impoverished condition, Itachi was able to perceive it. A vortex started to form around Madara's mask's eye hole, and Itachi could feel himself being drawn towards it. "I assume you've noticed we're nowhere near the fortress anymore. I never did show you the full extent of my teleportation jutsu, which allows me to not only move myself through space and time, but to move others. With it I can send you anywhere I desire, for instance this clearing. However, in this case I think I'll show it at its fullest power and send you to an entirely different world. Not even I will know where you end up." Madara pulled out Itachi's forehead protection and tossed it to him, saying, "Oh, and one other thing." He smiled beneath his mask as Itachi was drawn into the wormhole created by his Sharingan and disappeared. Can't have you go anywhere without your forehead protector, it's unfitting for a shinobi to be without one. Farewell Itachi Uchiha, your help in securing the tailed beasts has been invaluable. In the meantime, in Ponyville, there were still a lot of last-minute preparations to make, including arranging cakes and food on tables, adjusting ribbons and flowers, and, most importantly, making sure that every pony was present when the two princesses arrived. Everyone was in a rush to get everything ready for their impending arrival. Naturally, Twilight was tasked with planning the entire event. Okay, so that leaves Fluttershy, hey Rainbow Dash. Twilight yelled at the blue Pegasus, who was flying around attempting to perfect the clouds. Yeah. Have you seen Fluttershy at all today? No, I think she's been taking care of some animal's family, she might have forgotten about today. Twilight yelled in utter panic, what? Despite what Celestia had said at Sugar Cube Corner earlier in the year, she was still concerned that everything, especially her companions, had to be ideal. Dash, you need to go get her, now. A tiny wormhole appeared in the fabric of space-time on one of the several roads that led out of Ponyville, releasing the dying ninja into the world before swiftly disappearing. When Itachi realized the full scope of Madara's skill, he found himself standing in a different universe. His moment of astonishment was brief because his strength failed him once more, and he soon dropped to his hands and knees. He was furious at his predicament, and blood trickled from his mouth onto the compacted soil underneath him. As that jerk controls my younger brother and renders all of my sacrifices pointless, I'm dying in a world that isn't even mine. His final conscious thought as oblivion overtook him for the second time was for his brother's safety and the hope that his backup plan would succeed. He thought he heard a girlish wail just before closing his eyes. Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash were strolling down the road into Ponyville when Dash discovered Fluttershy tending to some bunnies whose member had beaked his leg. To the chagrin of Rainbow Dash, who did not like Twilight picking her out to go collect Fluttershy, especially since she still had work to do on the clouds, Fluttershy had been so preoccupied with trying to take care of the little creature that she had entirely forgotten about the event today. Dash apologized for her earlier outburst, saying, "Hey, I'm sorry for snapping at you earlier, Fluttershy. I'm just so annoyed with Twilight being a perfectionist about this whole thing." She had been furious when she had learned that Fluttershy had once again forgotten an important event due of animals. Additionally, Dash was aware that she had been a little too demanding to accompany her. "Oh no, it's alright, I really shouldn't have forgotten. Twilight's been going on about this whole thing for weeks, I'm just sorry she made you come get me even though you still had work to do," Fluttershy remarked with her trademark calm voice. As they rounded a corner, Dash recalled why the two Pegasi were such good friends. "Thanks Fluttershy, I shouldn't have been so frustrated with you, you're just doing what you're best at. And besides, I'm sure the Weather Patrol can get it done with Dash." Dash was interrupted by a voice she had never heard before, Fluttershy's voice rising to a volume of over 5 decibels. Fluttershy screamed, at the prone human on the road ahead of them. Dash exclaimed, "WOAH," when she realized what Fluttershy was yelling at. She knelt down to have a better look as she raced over it. She prodded the person in front of her with her arm and asked, "You okay?" When she didn't hear back, she started to worry. Fluttershy said, "I think he might be hurt." Her voice had gone back to its soft, typical tone. Dash grumbled as she pushed his left arm, flipping the body over. "You're probably right. Let's see if we can turn him over." The scene in front of them was not nice, and Fluttershy's front hooves shot up to her mouth, saying, "Oh no. Oh no, this is bad." Whoever he was gravely hurt, his right arm was completely burned, and the damage was visible through the charred skin. His breathing was dangerously shallow, blood was still dripping from his mouth, and it was dripping from his wrists and forearms. "We need to get him into town." Dash whispered nervously. "What?" "I don't know, Fluttershy, he might be dangerous. We can't just leave him here. He'll die unless we help him." She gave in and said, "Well, okay, then. Help me pick him up." "Oh okay," Fluttershy said as she leaped forward and assisted Dash in draping him across her back. Despite Dash's protests to the contrary, Rainbow Dash knew he would be too heavy for her to carry alone, so she trotted over to the other side and held his upper body while Dash took the lower. Fluttershy felt his warm blood trickle down her wing as she unfolded one of her wings to support his head. Normally, she would have panicked out, but the knowledge that his life depended on them prevented her from doing so. "Fantastic, Twilight will absolutely adore this." As the two ponies made their way into Ponyville with their load, Dash thought to herself. She turned to speak to Fluttershy, but she saw something. "What's that he's holding?" Fluttershy followed Dash's attention and muttered, She saw a long scrape running lengthwise along what looked to be a piece of metal attached to some cloth in his right hand. "I have no idea, I guess you can ask him when we finally get to Ponyville." "Yeah, I guess I will." Dash returned her attention to the road, still in awe at Fluttershy's generosity and hope. For her friend's sake as well as his, she increased the pace and took on more of the burden in order to get the unfortunate guy on her back in time to save his life. Itachi felt as though it was starting to become a pattern as he woke up again, although this time in a different location than when he had fallen unconscious. He couldn't be too irritated at being in another scenario where he didn't know what was happening because he was surprised to be alive and, more significantly, not in pain. After deciding that it would be preferable to gain a sense of his surroundings than to maintain the appearance of sleep, he opened his eyes at last. The purple horse adjacent to the bed Itachi was resting in caught his attention right away. It seemed to be levitating a pencil to take notes. For a full minute, Itachi just sat there in disbelief, trying to make sense of what was happening and whether he was being subjected to the most complex and nuanced genjutsu he had ever seen. The purple horse appeared to notice him at last before he could decide whether or not to accept this as fact. "Oh, so it seems you're finally awake," he said. Itachi started to speak and take a breath, but he stopped when he realized that his lungs were functioning flawlessly. He had been living with a death sentence for years, barely managing to stay alive with a regimen of drugs and sheer effort, but it suddenly seemed to have been cured. This knowledge made him smile, and he forgot all about the little pony that was talking to him. Twilight decided it would be a good idea to go get the princesses after becoming a little uneasy with whatever he was lying in front of her. She murmured as she made her way to the door, "I'll be right back." She was about halfway through when she heard a voice that made her neck stand on end. "Sorry, I was distracted." "What's your name?" She went to the proprietor, who gave her a questioning look and said, "Twilight." "Twilight Sparkle. And yours?" He looked around the room, taking in his surroundings, and said, "Itachi Uchiha." "Where exactly am I?" "You're in my library. You were in pretty bad shape when Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy brought you into town. My place happened to be the closest, so we brought you here while the princesses worked to save your life." "Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy?" "Oh, they're my friends, they're the ones who found you collapsed on the road outside Ponyville and brought you here." Itachi questioned, his bewilderment increasing with each second. What country is this in? Fire? Wind? Twilight responded as though it were the most apparent thing in the world. What? No, you're in Equestria. Anyways, I should probably go get the princesses, they'd be better equipped to answer any questions you might have. And besides, they told me to get them once you were awake. She added as she returned to the door. As the pony departed the building, Itachi thought to himself, this is too strange and realistic to be a genjutsu. No one could have conceived of this. However, there is only one way to be certain. Itachi closed his eyes and focused for a few seconds before opening them again and using his Sharingan. Just how I thought. I have a perfectly normal chakra flow. This put him in an even more precarious position because it seemed Madara had taken him to a completely new universe and had not been lying to him. The distinct likelihood that he was stuck here was one of the special issues that this presented to him. Before he could start thinking about his predicament, two horse-like figures appeared in the room. Unlike Twilight, these two had wings and a horn, and they appeared to be as royal as they could be. Wondering who this visitor was, Celestia led her sister into the chamber. Based on the considerable amount of time she and her sister had spent utilizing their combined abilities to cure him of his ailment, she had assessed him. But now that he was conscious, his face showed no emotion, and he was much more formidable and fierce. Celestia was impressed since she dealt with ambassadors and emissaries every day from all over the world, and none of them had been as unintelligible as the creature in front of them. My student, Twilight Sparkle tells me your name is Itachi Uchiha. Welcome Itachi, to my kingdom of Equestria. With a tone of gratitude, Itachi answered, thank you your highness. I am to understand you are the ones I have to thank for saving my life. Celestia pointed to the midnight blue pony standing behind her and said, well, my involvement was only partial, it was my sister Luna here who really was the one doing all the work. Itachi turned his attention to Luna, who was startled by the two blood-red eyes staring at her. The eyes appeared to see all that she usually kept hidden beneath the surface, peering straight through her to her own soul. But there was more, she could see loneliness, pain, and a deep grief in those eyes. Since her own eyes had held the same feelings for a millennium, Luna was able to identify and comprehend what was in his eyes. They acknowledged one another as kindred souls after a moment of mutual suffering during their lives. For the first time, his voice was filled with genuine passion as he said, thank you, Princess Luna. I had been suffering from that disease for many years. I am eternally in your debt for curing me of it. Luna responded meekly, it was nothing, really you're quite welcome. Anyway, Celestia said, turning back to face the ninja in front of them, I would like to know more about who you are and how you got to be in Equestria. After giving this some thought, Itachi concluded that he owed them at least that much and started talking. As for what I am a human, a former shinobi from the village of Konoha in the country of fire. And as for how I came to be here, I was sent here as a final insult, however I have no idea as to how I was sent. Konoha. Country of fire. For the next few minutes, Itachi gave the princesses a brief introduction to shinobi and the ninja world, including the political climate and the village system. He was hardly interrupted by the two alicorns, and when they did, it was simply to pose another query. When Itachi was done, Luna said, so you're from the village hidden in the leaves? Yes I was, but I ended up having to leave the village, despite how much I cared for my home. You left. Itachi picked up his forehead protector from the table next to him and placed it on, saying, yeah, that's what this represents. The logo in the center is the symbol of Konoha, and the scratch represents the cutting of all ties to the village. But why did you leave? The question made him serious and solemn. It was a necessary sacrifice to protect my brother, who I valued, still value higher than my village. It must have been difficult. It was. Itachi suddenly became aware that he was talking too much, that he had let his emotional barriers down for these two, and that, worse, he had no idea why. Well, I think I've explained myself thoroughly enough. Now I have a question for you, what exactly are you two? We're ponies, Itachi. Specifically alicorns, if that's what you're asking, replied Celestia. Alicorns? Yes, there are 3 types of ponies: earth ponies who are just regular ponies, pegasi who have wings, and unicorns that possess horns and can use magic. My sister and I are both alicorns because of our royal heritage. Itachi said, taking in the facts. Makes sense, I guess. Well then, Itachi Uchiha, I have one last question for you. What do you plan to do now that you are here? Replied Celestia. I am no danger to you or your subjects, Celestia. I have no reason to seek any conflict here, Itachi said, narrowing his gaze as he understood the nuances of the issue. All I want to do is try and find a way back to my world, failing that I have no idea. I had hoped for such a response. Itachi, you are officially a guest of Equestria. You may stay here in my student's home while you try to find a way back if you so wish. Thank you, Your Highness. Is there any way that I can possibly compensate for the hospitality I've received? I feel as if I owe you a great deal, yet I have no money. He said. The 2 royal sisters turned to depart after saying, I'm sure Twilight can think of something. In the meantime, good luck with your endeavors, Itachi. I hope to see you again soon. Luna turned back to face the young human who had so abruptly invaded their world as she was leaving. He was standing there now, taking off the bandages covering his right arm. She wanted to talk to him again in private because she was already interested in him. As she recalled the anguish and sorrow that lay beneath Itachi's eyes, she reflected that they weren't all that different from mine not too long ago. When he heard hoofs clopping behind him, Itachi was busy checking his arm for any indications of permanent harm. He turned to find Twilight approaching. Sorry for being so aloof earlier, I guess I just didn't trust you very much until the princesses talked to you. It seems like you'll be staying with me, so I think we better have some more formal introductions. Twilight stated with a trembling hoof. Itachi took her hoof and shook it, saying, Trust should be earned, not given, Twilight. It's quite all right. Well, anyways, is there anything you need? She inquired. Is there a tailor in this town? I do need some new clothing. Itachi pondered for a bit. Excited to have the opportunity to converse with someone from a different world, Twilight said, Oh, then we'll go to my friend Rarity's. She's the best clothing designer in all of Equestria. And I can also give you a quick tour of Ponyville on the way there if you like. That sounds like a good idea, Twilight. Please lead the way. He remarked as the 2 made their way to the door after considering the offer and concluding that it couldn't hurt. Itachi had hardly left Twilight's library when a pink blur appeared beside him. He had been too preoccupied with the town to recognize it at first, and if his Sharingan hadn't been triggered, he would have missed it completely. The pink pony, who stood less than an inch from his face and was, strangely, not in the least bit afraid by him, said, Hiya, my name's Pinkie Pie. What's yours? This is going to be a long day, Itachi moaned in his mind. As Pinkie Pie kept bouncing around the ninja, she gigglingly exclaimed, Wow, you sure are a scary guy, Mr. Uchiha. I don't think I've ever seen anyone faint from just looking at some pony. Following the completion of Itachi and Pinkie Pie's introductions, the three of them had left for town. Itachi's attitude was suffering from the stares they were receiving as they made their way through Ponyville, and he may have been giving Fluttershy a somewhat too intense glare as the group paused to greet her. The first thing the young Pegasus saw when she turned to answer Twilight's greeting was Itachi's eyes, and she instantly passed out. Darkly he laughed to himself, "Well, Pinkie Pie, I have had plenty of practice. Perhaps it'd be a good idea to deactivate my Sharingan." Looking up from Fluttershy, whom she was attempting to wake up, Twilight murmured, "Sherry, what now?" "That sounds like something you'd get if you were sick." He pointed to his eyes and remarked, "You don't think my eyes look like this naturally, do you?" as he turned off his Sharingan. Twilight saw Itachi's eyes turn into basic dark irises as the blood-red hue disappeared and the three markings surrounding the pupil rotated. Astonished by what she had just witnessed, Twilight stammered, "So those are your normal eyes?" "Yeah, these are my natural eyes, but I usually just leave my Sharingan activated." "This is Fluttershy, right? One of the two you said found me and carried me back here?" Itachi inquired, placing a hand on her forehead and nodding as he crouched down beside the unconscious pony. "My carefully considered plans for that day were also derailed when I was told, yes, she and Rainbow Dash were the ones that found you." "So wait, why'd you have your Sharingan activated?" As his palm started to light green, he remarked, "Besides to scare ponies. It allows me to see chakra and increases my perception. I was checking to see if I was under some sort of illusion earlier, guess I just forgot to deactivate them." Even while Itachi had never been extremely skilled at medical ninjutsu, he could at least adequately disrupt someone's chakra to bring them back to consciousness. "Chakra?" As Fluttershy started to stir, he responded, "You probably have a different word for it here, the mixture of physical and spiritual energy present in all living beings." "Twilight, I can see you have quite a lot of questions for me, but I'm not really in the mood to be answering them all at once. Considering I can't really think of a way to compensate you for letting me stay in your home, how's about you pick a time and we can sit down and I'll answer all your questions. Does that sound like fair payment to you?" Twilight grinned and replied, "Sounds like a deal to me." She was already starting to compile a list of questions for him. Fluttershy rubbed her head and sat up, halting abruptly when she opened her eyes and saw Itachi kneeling next to her, staring at her worriedly. What happened?" "I was buying some food for Angel when I heard Twilight, so I turned around and—" "Why, you're the one Rainbow Dash and I found on the road." "Yeah, I am, and I owe you to my life. Though I suppose scaring you half to death isn't the best way to show my gratitude." Itachi replied with a grin. "It's quite all right, I've never been the bravest of ponies." "What's your name?" "We never did find out." He got up from Fluttershy's side and said, "Itachi Uchiha. And if you or Rainbow Dash need anything, please let me know. I pay my debts, especially ones of this magnitude." She continued to look away from Ayachi as she added, "I'll remember that, thank you." Pinkie Pie continued to hop up and down. "Boo! Boo! Fluttershy, you should see who would win in a stare-off." "Your stare against his Sharingan Thinji," she said. "Oh no, I couldn't do that, you know that I can't control it. And I have no reason to use it on him." Pinkie exclaimed, "Aw, spoil sport," and eventually stopped bouncing. "And besides Pinkie, I've seen both. If they went at it, we might be here for hours." Twilight replied. Itachi looked around at the four ponies who were still staring at them and replied, "Probably, depends on which one of us would have to blink first. Twilight, I think it'd be a good idea to hold off on that tour until later. Twilight glanced about, observing the stares they were receiving. Agreed. Well, Twilight, it was nice to see you, but I have to get back to Angel. He doesn't like it when I'm late with his lunch. Oh, and Mr. Uchiha, it's good to see you're all right, Fluttershy stated as she walked away. Twilight said, "Okay, bye then, Fluttershy," as Pinkie Pie and the Pegasus started to leave for her house. "Pinkie Pie, where are you going?" Pinkie Pie bounced off in the same way as Fluttershy and exclaimed, "Oh, I'm going to help Fluttershy with feeding her little friends. But don't worry, I'll see you later at Mr. Uchiha's welcoming party." Itachi's voice trailed off as the pink pony giggled and kept bouncing away. "Wait, what? A party? But I wasn't." Twilight replied, giggling a little at the bewildered shinobi, "Don't worry, nobody can understand her, you're not the first to be confused by Pinkie, I know I still am." After that, the two went to Rarity's, where they could hear someone arguing over something even outside. Twilight pushed open the door, and Itachi exchanged a glance with her. "Hi there, Rarity." "Oh, sorry, are we interrupting you?" As she completed some stitches on a frock on a pony-shaped mannequin, a white unicorn with her back to Itachi and Twilight stood in front of them, her horn blazing. As she worked, Rarity said, "Oh no dear, I'm just finishing up these last few details, I'll only be a minute." "What is it you need?" "Oh well, it's not for me, it's for our new arrival here." When Rarity eventually turned to face them and saw Itachi, she exclaimed, "New arrival? You don't mean you're the one Dash and Fluttershy found on the way into town, right?" "My name's Rarity, it's a pleasure to meet you." He bowed his head in greeting and murmured, "Itachi Uchiha, and likewise." "So what can I do for you, Itachi?" "Well, I'm in need of some replacement clothing for some that I lost earlier, and Twilight told me you were the best one to go to." "Well, she's quite right, do you have anything in mind?" "Yes, actually, do you have a pencil and paper?" "I can give you the design right now along with all the measurements if that'd be helpful." "Well, of course that would, but surely you can't mean you plan on designing it all right now?" Itachi's expression told her otherwise. She handed them a pencil and sketch pad and replied, "Well then, here you go. Let me know when you're finished or if you have any questions. In the meantime, Twilight darling, there's a few things I wanted to get your opinion on with regards to the Grand Galloping Gala." By the time Itachi ended, the two ponies had barely been conversing for a few minutes. Rarity's jaw nearly fell to the ground as he handed up the sketch pad. He questioned, "Did I do something wrong?" "No, no, of course not, but you did all this in a couple of minutes." Curious, Twilight turned to the sketchbook and saw a very detailed image of what appeared to be a huge coat from 3 different perspectives. The drawing even showed the individual stitches. The colors he desired, a list of the required supplies, and measurements to 3 decimal places of accuracy were also included on the side. "Yeah, sorry if it's a bit rough," the pencil tip broke off halfway through. After maintaining her stunned expression, Rarity abruptly rushed off to her shelves to check if she had the necessary supplies. "You did that on purpose, didn't you?" Twilight muttered to Itachi as she rummaged through her inventory. With a slight smirk on his lips, he muttered back, "Perhaps. No one's ever accused me of not being thorough." Twilight saw that he had revived his Sharingan and began to smile as well. As she levitated the cloth she was going to work with back to a nearby table, Rarity asked, "Well, I have all the materials necessary for it, but are you sure you want these colors?" They just clash so much with the purple you're already wearing. Yes, I am sure, the colors are pretty important to me. They were traditional wear for my clan. Itachi replied. Rarity pointed to the magenta dress she was working on when Twilight and Itachi entered the store and said, "Well, if you say so, but before I get started, could you come over here and tell me what you think about the stitching on this dress? You do seem to have a pretty good eye for design." As Itachi gave in to Rarity, Twilight groaned and pointed out all the issues that still beset her employment. She let out a sigh and glanced out the window to see Spike running up the street toward Rarity's, looking upset. Twilight shouted, "Spike," to get the young dragon's attention as she went outside the store. Twilight. "I'm so glad I found you. Is Rarity in there?" Spike exclaimed, gasping for air. "She was last time I checked like 5 seconds ago." "Why? What's wrong?" Rainbow Dash said, "There's a manticore heading for Sweet Apple Acres, fast. And she needs your guys' help to stop it before it hurts some pony. Does Applejack know?" "She's got to get out of there." "Yeah, but you know how she is, she won't abandon her apple orchard." Twilight turned back to Rarity and said, "Well then, we've got to get going now." "I'm sorry Itachi, but me and Rar wait." Rarity, "Where'd Itachi go?" "I don't know, he was looking out the window at you and Spike when he suddenly asked me where Sweet Apple Acres is, and once I told him, he said he had to leave and shot off." "A boy, oh boy." Twilight thought to herself that it seemed like things had gotten much more confusing. In an attempt to capture the manticore creature before it might harm an innocent person, Itachi leaped from Ponyville's roof to roof on his way to the ever-free forest. Ordinarily he would never have gotten involved in such a thing, but he was free to drop the mask of the cold-blooded evil misfit he had worn for so long. Itachi also remarked, "I owe these ponies a great deal. It's the least I can do to try and repay them for the kindness and generosity they've shown me," as he crossed the town's edge and ran into the forest's trees. Exasperated, Applejack exclaimed, "For the last time, Apple Bloom, you can't stay out here with me and Big Macintosh, it's too dangerous." She was already high from the large, vicious monster that was on its way to her farm, and her younger sister's attempts to assist her and Big Mac in fending it off weren't helping. Apple Bloom objected, saying, "But sis, it's my home too. I wanna help." "No you're not, and that's final. Now get back to the barn before I drag you up there myself." Big Mac said, "It's too late," as he peered into the jungle and heard a big animal smash, which was getting louder by the second. Applejack said, "Apple Bloom, get behind us and stay low," as she and Big Mac prepared to battle whatever came out of there. As the manticore emerged from the tree lean, she reflected, "I guess we'll have to do this without the others." "Wait, what's that?" stated Big Mac. Between them and the manticore in the field that separated Sweet Apple Acres from Ever-Free Forest, a lone figure had just appeared. It did not move to avoid the charging beast, which abruptly stopped as it got close to the figure, fearing that due to the figure's unexpected appearance, the beast would not attack for the time being. "I know who that is. That's the one Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash found the other day." "But what's he doing awake, and more importantly, what the hay is he doing, trying to take on that thing single-handedly?" replied Applejack. Big Mac was about to finish when the manticore struck out, impaling the human in front of them through the body with its tail. "I don't know sis, but he best get out of there before." As Applejack observed the scene before her, she exhaled, "No." She glanced at Apple Bloom, concerned that her sister could witness something similar. Her sister's eyes were filled with tears, and Apple Bloom's expression suggested that she was about to cry as she took in what had transpired. A voice behind them said, "Well, at least now I know it's perfectly capable of killing. The human they had just witnessed being stabbed was standing in front of the three ponies as they turned to gaze at the manticore and its purported victim. Applejack stumbled out in shock at what she saw, but how are you? We just saw you. When Applejack glanced around, she watched the impaled body of the creature standing next to her change into a swarm of crows. Itachi just inclined his head, signaling that they should look back at the beast behind them. Genjutsu. He simply answered, an illusionary technique. I needed to see what it was capable of and so placed a clone in front of it. Itachi started to assess the situation as he approached the boundary between Sweet Apple Acres and the Everfree Forest. Coldly analytical in warfare, he concluded it would be best to assess the manticore's capabilities and determine whether it was genuinely determined to destroy everything in its path. Thus, as he observed from the sidelines, he used his genjutsu to produce a clone. Now that he understood that it could definitely kill and that it did so mainly with its tail, maybe that knowledge would come in handy later. Itachi started to move forward, moving into the field in the direction of the manticore that had resumed its attack on the group. I'll handle this, just stay back and watch, it'll be over quick. Before her brother's hoof on her shoulder cut her off, Applejack began to say, hey now wait just an apple pickin' minute here Mr. Applejack I think it's best if we just listen to him, he sure seems to know what he's doing. Big Mac had seen Itachi's eyes on a few occasions in his life, and he had noticed that detached, battle-hardened look in the eyes of only a few ponies, all of whom were in the royal guard. Big Mac had the sudden impression that everything would be alright and that the man in front of them was capable of handling anything. And triumph. Itachi closed his eyes and focused on the manticore, which was now only 50 feet away from them. He opened them again and used a paralysis genjutsu on the beast in front of him, but it halted suddenly as it drew closer and closer until it was just 10 feet away. I don't know whether or not you can understand me, but I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying with my eyes. He then strode forward, maintaining eye contact the entire time, and said, begone from here and never return to this place, or you'll have me to answer to, and next time I won't be so lenient. For its part, the creature was terrified beyond belief since, in all its life, it had never seen a creature with eyes as powerful as the ones that were now boring into its own. Its only option was to flee from the eyes that now confined it to its current position. Itachi removed the genjutsu after sensing that his message had been understood, and the manticore instantly turned tail and fled back into the jungle. Well now that's better, are you all alright? He said, turning to face the three ponies, who were all looking at him with astonished looks on their faces. Did I make a mistake again? That was amazing mister, said the youngest, who ran to embrace Itachi's leg. That was so cool how you scared off that manticore just by looking at it. What's your name? For the first time, he was unsure of what to do. Itachi Uchiha. He only knew that the young filly was a lot like his brother when they were younger. She pointed to the bigger red pony standing next to her and stated, well, Itachi, you have the thanks of the Apple family, my name's Applejack and this here's Big Macintosh. And the little one who's trying to crush the life out of your leg there is Apple Bloom. You're welcome. Sorry if I scared you all with my clone genjutsu earlier, I don't like going into a fight with no understanding of my opponent. Itachi replied. Nah, it's fine so long as you're actually okay. When a voice they all recognized called out, Applejack, the four of them turned to see Twilight and the other Harmony components sprinting toward them. Are you all right? Where's the manticore? Applejack responded, pointing to the ninja, calm down Twilight, we're all right thanks to your friend Itachi here, he scared that beast off with just a look. Never quite seen anything like it. Itachi didn't know the name of the blue Pegasus, but it said, just a look, huh? Pretty impressive. Hiya, my name's Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy and I were the ones who found you out on that road. You must be Itachi, guess I'm the only one you haven't met yet. She stated with a hoof raised. He took the hoof and gave it a shake, saying, great to meet you. I owe you a great deal for saving my life. Twilight questioned, so you really scared it off with just a look? Itachi said, well, it was a little more than just a look. Ah, I see. Your Sharingan, I assume. Grinning, he said, good guess. Oh my gosh, you guys, you know what we should do? We should have a double party. One to welcome Mr. Uchiha to Ponyville, and one for him saving Sweet Apple Acres, said Pinkie Pie with delight. With a nod of approval, every pony said, sounds good to me. Just one condition, call me Itachi from now on, Mr. Uchiha sounds too formal. Pinkie Pie exclaimed, why, as the gang left for Ponyville. Itachi felt satisfied for the first time in a long time. As he was escorted into town, he was sure to appreciate the place's ability to lift the heavy shadow that had hung over him for the majority of his existence, even though he had no idea what it was. There was a malevolent spirit stirring deep in the space between worlds. It would have donned a mask of the greatest annoyance if it had a face. It was extremely pitiful that a creature of its caliber could not even have caused property damage with the manticore it had persuaded to assault the weak, defenseless tiny hamlet. However, it was taken aback by what had prevented it. The entity that had resisted its control over the beast was more powerful than the two princesses of that world combined and more skilled at manipulating minds than it was. Now it recognized that being as the one it had sensed coming. If it had learnt anything in its many years, it was the importance of patience, so it would wait for the time being, waiting for an opportunity to present itself. Throughout its life, it had taken on a variety of titles and guises, but Nightmare Moon was the most recent one, when it was in possession of that weak-minded alicorn. It would wait and observe for the time being, but it had plans. Luna found herself standing in the middle of an unfamiliar street at night, with a stunning view of the sky as usual. She surveyed her surroundings, noticing that the street was bordered by a striking building on one side and a wall on the other. Luna found herself pulled to the structure, feeling compelled to enter. A voice said, "Brother. Mother and father are. What happened? Who would do such a thing?" As she got closer to the front door. Whoever it was sounded more scared than any pony Luna had ever heard in her life. Luna began. She exploded through the front door, but she only got a few steps before she stopped in disbelief. The scene in front of her was more gory than she could have ever imagined. There were bloodstains all over the house's charming interior, and there were weapons scattered on the walls and floor, indicating that a fight had clearly broken out. The air was split by a scream before she could gather her thoughts. Stop it, big brother. Why are you showing me this? Luna's shock-induced paralysis was broken by the scream, and she rushed in the direction of the voice. She paused in front of the room where she had heard it and started to open the door carefully. Why? Why did you do this? The voice repeated as she slipped into the blackness, which was nothing but darkness that flowed out like river swallowing her. Staring down at the book she had fallen asleep on, Luna woke up in a cold sweat. She recalled that she had been in the library by herself, researching spells to travel between realms. She must have dozed off because she was so exhausted from tending to Itachi the other day. It was a terrible dream. I wonder what the topic was. For the first time in several hours, Itachi breathed the crisp night air as he stepped out onto Twilight's library's balcony. The party was still going on behind him, and almost everyone in Ponyville was there. He had not eaten in a long time, therefore he had spent the last few hours embracing several ponies and filling up on the food that was offered. As he sipped apple cider from a chalice and tried to calm the stinging sensation on his tongue, he gazed off into space and mentally noted that he should never eat anything Pinkie Pie gave him without first checking what she had given him. Without looking back, he said, "So how much longer are you just going to stand there in the shadows?" Next to him, Luna faded into view. "How did you know I was there?" As he took another sip, he remarked, "Please princess, your chakra overshadows everyone here, well except maybe Twilight." Itachi finally turned to face her and said, "She's got quite a bit of power hidden under that studious visage. So to what do I owe this pleasure? I came here to tell you this in person. I've been researching spells all day to travel between worlds. I've tried everything. But I'm afraid there's no way for you to return to your home. I'm sorry." Luna replied as she looked away. Itachi halted with the chalice halfway to his lips. "You didn't have to do that. Thank you." Luna turned to face the shinobi again. "You don't seem all that upset. I knew from the second I woke up in this world that being stuck here was a very real possibility. My entire life has been about playing the cards I've been dealt to the best of my ability. This is no different. Seems like a horrid way to live life. You're right, but life's not always that simple. Things happen that are out of our control and we suffer the consequences. Getting upset or angry about something that you can't control or alter is a waste of time and energy." Itachi shrugged, turning back to face the town below. He then took a long drink from the chalice. "And besides, there are a lot worse places to be stranded." Itachi's composed acceptance of his fate surprised Luna, who had anticipated that he would be shocked, even furious, but not composed. "But you'll never see your friends or family again, doesn't that bother you?" "I haven't had friends in 8 years and my only family left is my little brother, who I've only seen a few times in that time frame." "Wait, how old are you?" "Well, that's not that bad. 21. "What? You're telling me you haven't had any friends for almost half your life?" Itachi picked his words carefully because he was stepping on thin ice when he responded, "Yes, there have been certain circumstances that prevented me from being able to have any." "Circumstances?" "I've been running for those last 8 years, living on borrowed time. Making every effort that I could to accomplish my last goal, the only one that mattered. Giving my brother the chance to live in a world that I never could." Luna asked, "What kind of world?" in an attempt to comprehend the human whose life she was starting to see was not all that dissimilar from her own. Turning to her, Itachi said, "A world without war." Luna became silent in shock. He looked at the cider that was swirling around him. "Living in a world such as this, you probably can't understand it, watching people who you've known all your life, who you've shared laughs and stories with, die all around you. Having countless comrades whom you trust with your own life fall in battle before your eyes is a horrible thing, something I swore long ago to prevent with anything I could give. Including my life." After blinking many times, Luna said, I couldn't imagine such a thing happening to me." Looking back at her, Itachi remarked, "Be grateful you can't, because the hatred that had taken over my world caused me to lose my best friend. This world is a gem, Luna. There have been thousands who have given their lives back in my home in the name of peace, so that they might forge a world like the one you enjoy so thoroughly here." Following that, the two simply stood silently together, enjoying one other's company while gazing out at the night. Itachi finally broke the ice by asking, "So I actually am quite curious now, how old are you?" Luna remarked, surprised, "That's a bit of a rude question to ask. You asked first, so it's only fair." "Fine, if you must know, I'm 1105. Itachi simply gave her a very bewildered face. "You're kidding me, right?" "No, I'm not. My sister and I are both immortal," Luna said with a simple shake of her head. "Wow, are you two the only immortal ones?" Luna looked up at her knight and said, "Yes, we are. We must be because it is our duty to raise the moon and the sun, without us there would be nothing." After a pause, Itachi remarked, "Must be hard, being the only two immortals in the world." Luna, who disliked thinking about that period of her life, looked back down and responded, "Yes, it is, though my sister would know better than me. I've spent the majority of my life trapped in the moon." "Huh?" he asked, looking truly perplexed once more. "I was entrapped within the moon for 1,000 years, punishment for my actions, so to speak. I allowed a dark presence to overtake me because of my jealousy. While under its influence I put all of Equestria to sleep and sent nightmares raging through their heads until my sister stopped me and then sealed me in the moon to prevent everlasting night. I was forced to endure the loneliness of my exile and the torture of that darkness until a couple months ago when I returned and was saved by the elements of harmony." Luna recalled the events that had dominated the majority of her existence. Elements of harmony. The 6 ponies that embody the elements of friendship. I believe you've met them all already. They are Twilight, Applejack, Rarity, Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, and Rainbow Dash. "Oh yeah, I've met them all. But that sounds terrible, 1,000 years in the moon. I don't think I could have handled that." Itachi replied. Luna was starting to appear dejected, as though talking about her past was hurting her a lot. "I'm surprised I did too. It's certainly been an experience trying to come to terms with being gone for 1,000 years. For what it's worth, Luna, I don't think you deserved any of that, and it's a horrible tragedy that it did happen to you. You're one of the kindest beings I've ever met." "Why, you really think so?" "How could I not? You spend an entire day working to save my life. Allow me, a stranger from a violent world, to stay in your kingdom. Then on top of all that you spend another day researching for ways to return me home, come here to let me know personally, and then you have patience to listen to me ramble on about my past. You're a very selfless pony, Luna. It really does anger me that you went through all that, spending the majority of your life in the moon. Nobody deserves that, least of all you." She turned away to conceal her face from him and replied, "Thank you." She wished to hide her tears from him. Pretending not to see her tears, Itachi turned back to gaze at the night sky. Luna spoke up again as he drank the cider he had brought outside to the balcony. "Does this mean that we're friends? Do you want to be friends?" "Yes." He smiled and answered, "Then yes." Itachi would never understand how much Luna's newfound friendship meant to her. She had just made her first friend in 1,000 years. Furthermore, he was more than simply a buddy. He was a fellow human being who had endured loneliness for the most duration of his life, and as such, they were able to understand one another in a manner that no one else could. At that very moment, Twilight stepped out onto the balcony and said, "Hey Itachi, are you up here?" Twilight became silent when she saw Luna. Before she realized who she was speaking to, she bowed deeply and said, "Princess Luna. What are you doing here? I had no idea you were coming. Otherwise I would have been more prepared." "It's quite alright, Twilight Sparkle, I was just here to talk to Itachi, there's no need to make a fuss about it. I was about to leave anyways, but before I do I feel like I should let you know that my sister is planning on inviting all of you to Canterlot tomorrow. Just a bit of a warning so you're not caught completely by surprise." Twilight murmured, "Thank you, Princess." She was very appreciative of the information since it gave her the opportunity to organize herself, something she detested. Luna then faced Itachi, who had been observing their conversation with a certain amount of amusement. "Well then, Itachi Uchiha, I shall see you tomorrow. Until then, enjoy my night." She was grinning. Itachi matched her smile and replied, "I look forward to it, Princess Luna. Good night to you as well." The young unicorn gaped at the spot where Luna had disappeared after Luna teleported out of Twilight's library. "Just what did you do, Itachi? I don't think I've ever seen Luna smile like that." "Oh, we just talked about our pasts, nothing too major." "Okay then, just what did she come all the way out here to tell you?" Itachi replied soberly, "That there's no way for me to return to my own world." What more could Twilight say than, "Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks." Itachi stated that he was still coming to that realization. In spite of what he had previously stated, he did care that he was stuck here since it prevented him from exacting retribution on Madara. "However, you are meant to be dead, Itachi. It is better to be alive and stuck on a foreign planet than dead for no apparent reason." Twilight remarked, "You ready to go back in?" Applejack wanted to toast the hero of Sweet Apple Acres once more, and the party was still going strong. Itachi followed Twilight back inside and said, "Yeah." As he considered his predicament, another notion came to him. He wanted to make sure everything was ready before Celestia called them all, so he made the decision to go over to Rarity's first thing in the morning. But for now, he would simply attempt to savor what remained of the evening. Twilight was not feeling well when she woke up. Given that she was now experiencing severe sugar withdrawal, she should never have allowed Pinkie Pie to persuade her to consume so many cupcakes. It was around mid-morning when she glanced out her window. Spike will be pleased at least because he was able to sleep in at last. Twilight, who was now genuinely awake, got out of bed and turned to face Spike after realizing the dragon had vanished. Perhaps, for once, he actually got himself up. She yelled, "Spike!" several times as she made her way downstairs to Itachi's lodging. But there was no one in the library. But Spike seemed to have taken care of everything. Twilight was beginning to worry when she saw a note from Spike on a table, stating that he and Itachi were at Rarity's and requesting that she meet them by the lake as soon as she woke up. Spike and Itachi reached the lake before Twilight did. Itachi was dressed very differently than he had been when he had first come to Ponyville. He was still wearing his forehead protector, but he was wearing a big, dark coat with a high collar and a swirling emblem on the back. The front of Itachi's coat was open, showing that he had also changed out of his purple outfit. He was wearing jet black underwear and some kind of olive vest, and his ankles were bandaged over the sandals of the same color. He approached Twilight and said, "Good morning, Twilight. I accidentally woke Spike up earlier when I was getting ready to leave to go over to Rarity's, and once he heard where I was going he wanted to come with. It's okay, I was pretty out of it this morning because of the party last night." "So why did you say for me to meet you two here, Spike?" "Well, Itachi told me that in exchange for helping Rarity and him with his new clothes he'd teach me how to breathe fire better, and I wanted to show you." Twilight said, "You can do that," as she cast an incredulous glance at Itachi. Turning to Spike, Itachi shrugged and said, "Well, we'll see, at the very least I should be able to help him with his control of it." "Okay, Spike, let's see what you can do." After nodding and focusing while gazing out over the lake, Spike used all of his remaining energy to launch a fireball toward the center of the water, where it exploded. Good effort, that wasn't bad by any stretch of imagination, but you're wasting too much energy in trying to propel the flames forward and it's reducing the amount of flames you can produce. Itachi, who had been observing Spike with his Sharingan the entire time, moved ahead of the other two. Here, if you stop trying so hard to make it go further, then it should look something like this. Wait, he's not going to breathe fire. Twilight's eyes widened. Correct? Katan, Gokaku. Before she could speak, Itachi's hands blurred together as he swiftly drew his head back and performed 5 hand seals. He then unleashed a massive fireball that was almost 5 times as large as Spike's. It sped ahead and burst in a dramatic way in the center of the lake. He looked around to see the two staring at him with slack jaws. And that's how it should look. What? Recovering first, Twilight remarked, that was incredible. I didn't know humans could use magic. As he saw the bewildered look still staring back at him, he sighed and went on to explain the fundamentals of ninjutsu and nature releases. That's not magic, that's ninjutsu, the art of molding one's chakra to physically affect the world. Spike exclaimed, wow, after Itachi was done. Well, those are just the basics of it, there's a lot more. But that should give you an understanding at least. Itachi remarked. Now in the meantime Spike, give it another try, except this time try not to focus too much on making it fly particularly far. As Spike stepped up to the water's edge and was ready to launch another fireball, he remarked, well, okay, here goes nothing. Before he did, though, he sent forth a tiny bit of fire that summoned a letter into their midst. Twilight swiftly read it after catching it with her magic. Itachi inquired, what is it, even though he already had a strong suspicion. It's a summons to Canterlot from Princess Celestia, for the elements of harmony and you, Itachi. Well, okay, then how are we supposed to get there? She's sending some chariots for those of us who can't fly. In the meantime we should probably gather the rest of my friends so we're all ready to go when they get here. After 20 minutes, the 7-person party was prepared to leave Ponyville's hub. 5 chariots came down from the heavens and stopped in front of them while they observed. Are you sure one of these things can take my weight? Itachi inquired after glancing over one of the chariots for a little second. He received an angry glance from the guards' ponies pulling the carriage. He stepped into one of the chariots and replied, guess they think they can. The other earthbound members of their group did the same. After a brief 10-minute flight to the capital city, they were all on the ground outside the palace, prepared to enter. Itachi couldn't help but feel uneasy about the entire situation as they started to enter the royal hall. He couldn't quite place it, but something wasn't quite right. He turned to face the sky, and he thought he saw a tiny flash of something, but whatever it had been was gone now, but it didn't make him feel any less anxious. The dark spirit known only as Nightmare hovered high over the city of Canterlot, brooding, this could be the chance it had been waiting for. The pieces had just come together, proving that its patience had paid off. It was far from its former brilliance, though, and its potency had diminished somewhat since the encounter with those wicked elements of harmony a few months prior. That pitiful pony had the abilities of a goddess but was also quite manipulable, making it easy to take advantage of the bond that had developed between its old shell and Nightmare's new prey. Yes, this was undoubtedly the chance it had been waiting for. With a footing in her mind, it could affect every other being present. It would have to drive that person away from the elements and turn them against him first, and if the flashbacks to his dreams it had witnessed were any clue as to what was hidden in the human's past, it knew exactly how to accomplish that. As the elements entered her throne room, Celestia greeted them with the words, "Welcome to Canterlot, young ponies." Luna inquired, a little worried since he wasn't one of them, "Where's Itachi?" "He did get the summons, right?" When he entered, Itachi remarked, "Don't worry, Luna, I'm here." It was a white lie, but there was no need to agitate them over a tense sensation he had. "Sorry, I was just admiring the architecture design and lost track of the group. My sister has told me that she has informed you of the impossibility of return to your world. You have my sympathy, Itachi. No Ponei should ever have to be forcibly separated from their home." "Thank you, Princess, I appreciate it." The 5 ponies in the room turned to Itachi after hearing this for the first time. With a startled expression on her face, Fluttershy whispered, "You're stuck here? That's terrible." He smiled at them all and said, "It's not as bad as you might think, please, don't get upset on my account." Rainbow Dash questioned incredulously, "How can it not be terrible? You'll never be able to see your home ever again, doesn't that bother you?" Itachi turned back to the group of ponies after glancing at Luna for a considerable amount of time. "Because if I hadn't ended up here I would be dead. You saw how bad I was when you first found me. In my world there was no cure for that disease and I wouldn't be alive if Luna and Celestia hadn't cured me of it. Fate is a fickle thing, but I can't help but feel I ended up here for a reason. I have no idea what that reason is, but by coming here even though I can never return I was given a second chance. Not being able to see my home again is a small price to pay for my life." He looked out the window and smiled, "And besides, if I had to end up being stuck somewhere, Equestria doesn't seem half bad." He continued, repeating his previous statement. "Now Celestia, I assume you summoned me here for a reason?" he asked, turning back to the gathering. "Yes, I did. First of all I wanted to thank you personally for stopping that manticore. That was no small feat and you doubtlessly saved many lives." "And my farm," said Applejack. After grinning, Celestia said, "Yes, and Applejack's farm." Itachi raised an eyebrow and questioned, "So then why'd you bring the others here?" "I was getting to that, Itachi. An attack like this is completely unheard of in Equestria's history. Beasts like the manticore have attacked ponies who wander too deeply into their realms, but there's never been a case of one coming out and attacking innocent ponies. This incident concerns me greatly, and gives rise to suspicions that it was influenced to attack Sweet Apple Acres. We do not suspect you of causing this, Itachi. You were unconscious for 2 days and then were always with my student until it attacked." Itachi started to say something, but Celestia interrupted him with a smile. "However, I do find it funny that you would expect us to suspect you," she said. Itachi sighed. "I would if I was in your position, but I guess that's just my opinion as somebody who's used to conspiracy. What I want to know is how you knew it was going to attack." "I don't remember any pony telling you about it," Twilight responded. "My Sharingan can read lips, Twilight. I can see what you're saying from a mile away, maybe more depending on the weather." Itachi replied with a grin, "When you were talking to Spike I could read every word and made my decision to go help. In the meantime let's get back to the issue at hand. Whatever it was that influenced that manticore, it is incredibly powerful, and obviously has malicious aims. It could very well be the greatest threat to Equestria since Nightmare Moon, perhaps more." Luna sighed when her previous title was mentioned. Celestia looked directly at him and stated, "For this reason I summoned the elements of harmony. However, Itachi, you I summoned because I have a request to make of you." "You do?" Itachi asked, cocking his head slightly in interest. These 6 ponies all have an obligation to protect this land and all its inhabitants. You do not, so I could not in good faith ask you to help us in this task. This is not your world, and these are not your people or even your kind. Your actions in Ponyville, however, have made me reconsider that decision, and so I ask you, Itachi Uchiha of Konoha, will you help us defend our land? Though he had already decided when he departed to go defend Applejack and her family, Itachi seemed to be considering the question as all of the ponies in the room observed him closely. Princess Celestia of Equestria, I will aid you in the defense of this world with all my skills and knowledge. You have my word as a shinobi. She grinned. Very well then, Itachi Uchiha, I will hold you to that promise should the time come. However, as I said before, do keep in mind that whatever it was that caused that attack is extremely powerful and dangerous and poses a grave risk to us all. A voice that chilled every pony's spine said, My Celestia, I don't have heard such compliments for a millennium. As it spoke, an unnatural blackness, not the peaceful darkness of the night, but a terrible, awful darkness that one only encounters in their worst nightmares, started to creep into the room. As the darkness pushed deeper into the chamber, Celestia asked, Who are you? What is the meaning of this? Surely you recognize the voice of the being that turned your dear sister against you. Or maybe you've gotten senile in your many years. The voice chided. And no, it can't be. Luna stammered, her face displaying a look of sheer horror and trembling. They sealed you away, you can't possibly be here. As it spoke, a large demonic alicorn shaped itself out of the darkness in front of them. Oh, but I am my dear Luna, I've returned to bring darkness once again. And like last time, you shall be my medium to this world. And as soon as it opened its eyes, black flames engulfed it. Itachi was unable to explain why he was so determined to kill whatever had materialized in front of them at that precise time. Could it have been the overwhelming wickedness emanating from it? Or perhaps it was because it was making the person he had called a friend so afraid? No, when Itachi struck, it was something much simpler, its eyes. Those thoughts had not even started to develop in his mind. Itachi had only ever seen eyes with the same ambition and cruelty in Madara, the one person in his life for whom he harbored unending loathing and contempt. Itachi killed the monster in front of him out of reflex, summoning Amaterasu and channeling all of his resentment and grief for not protecting his younger brother. Never in his life had he been so committed to ruining something. The other ponies in the room simply gazed at the writhing demon alicorn that was being devoured by the fierce black flames in front of them. But Luna turned to face Itachi, certain that no pony could start such a fire. She would never forget what she saw. Itachi's eyes had transformed, and the patterns that had been present on the surface had changed. The most noticeable thing was that he appeared to be crying since his right eye was seeping blood. She had never witnessed such hatred in another person's eyes, though, so that wasn't what startled her. Amaterasu was extinguished while the flames burned on, causing the alicorn they covered to disappear and Itachi's right eye to return to normal. All of the ponies in the room gazed at the location where the pony had disappeared, before slowly turning to face Itachi. Celestia exclaimed, sounding irate for the first time, "What was that?" Even she, the sun's mistress, was incapable of creating flames with that level of intensity. Itachi pointed to his injured eye and spoke the words, "Amaterasu. The ultimate fire release technique, cast from my right Mangekyo Sharingan." As the demonic alicorn rebuilt undamaged, the voice said, "Well, inextinguishable black flames that burn with an intensity greater than that of the sun. You are indeed special. Allow me to introduce myself, I go by many names but you may call me Nightmare. Twilight yelled, but we sealed you away, while the other components of Harmony stood at her side. There was no comedy in Nightmare's laughter. Yes, you may have successfully managed to seal me away temporarily. But my power rises with the negative emotions present in this world. It glanced at Luna, and your doubts about your relationship with this human have given me all the power I need to return. Luna said the words, I don't have any doubts, slightly. Lies. I've seen the thoughts swirling around your head. You wonder whether he will abandon you like all the others did millennia ago. About his ability to understand you for who you really are. Do not lie to me, Luna, for I know you better than Enipo dash. A single phrase broke the nightmare. It wasn't very loud, but the order and menace it contained made it seem like an atom bomb. Enough. Nightmare focused on the Itachi, whose eyes pierced its own with all the ferocity and animosity of a deadly foe. Now that he understood why he could see so well, Itachi realized why Amaterasu was stronger than ever and had no effect on him. He had acquired an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan somehow. He had no idea how or why, but he was certain that he intended to use it to destroy the presence that had plagued Luna before him. The 6 ponies started glowing and rising into the air at this precise instant, indicating that the elements of Harmony had decided to take action. But Nightmare had foreseen this and disappeared again, the shadows appearing to fade. Although the components were still hovering, it seemed that the darkness had vanished, and they descended to the ground. But by no means was it finished. As soon as they set foot on the earth, darkness descended upon them again, and they were all promptly overcome by fatigue and fell to the ground, all of them dozing. Celestia started to run forward in alarm, but she stopped when she realized something and turned to face her sister warily. Her worst fears were realized when she saw Luna. As she battled imaginary foes in her head, her sister lay on the ground convulsing. Nightmare's ominous presence overcame her, and it uttered a single word. Gotcha. As the darkness charged toward her, Celestia only gazed at it defiantly. When it finally overpowered her and she fell to the ground, she let out a feeble, "You'll pay." Itachi knelt by Twilight, confirming that their sleep was the only thing that had occurred. He sensed that the darkness was trying to affect him, but his genjutsu experience and chakra destroyed it. Calmly, he approached Luna, who was still flailing on the ground and moaning, "No, no, no." He knelt beside her and held her head in his hands, saying, "Luna, look at me." When she didn't answer, he put his mouth to her ear and muttered, "Luna, please. Looking at me is the only way I can help you if you don't want to be its slave again." As he peered inside the princess's mind, Itachi saw that she had finally reached him. The princess's eyes opened just a little, but it was enough. Itachi went along a corridor that seemed to go on forever. The interior was a network of corridors with countless chambers, and everyone's thoughts were always the same. Since every room contained a memory, the halls were more complicated and the rooms were more numerous for the older and more seasoned person. In addition to being the oldest person he had ever met, Luna's was unquestionably the biggest one he had ever seen. He could feel her presence ahead of him, so he wasn't concerned about getting lost. When he finally found her, it was not unexpected that she was at the end of all the passageways, in the center of her consciousness. A black humanoid entity hovered over Luna, creating an aura over her as she lay on the ground. Whatever horror had gripped Luna, she shifted on the ground, squirming. The figure, which was made totally of darkness, turned to face Itachi. Its eyes were 2 blazing orbs that blazed through. So you can even see me inside her, impressive. You're just full of endless surprises, aren't you, Itachi Uchiha? Itachi's voice was emotionless, his cold rage had supplanted any other emotion. If I were you, I would leave here now. I would recommend you find the darkest hole under the biggest rock you can find, and hide there so as to prolong your existence a few more seconds before I destroy you. As darkness rushed into Itachi, Nightmare chuckled and said, I think I'll pass on that offer actually. But now it's my turn to give you some advice, you should never have come here. It held up an arm in his direction and said, by entering her mind, you have exposed your own. In an instant, Nightmare's presence was felt in Itachi's mind, swirling through all of his memories and absorbing his whole life. However, Nightmare's control was thrown out of the ninja's head when Itachi's instincts took over and his chakra flow grew so powerful. At one point, Nightmare collapsed. It had not anticipated such a strong reaction from Itachi. Even so, it grinned because what it had discovered there was simply too ideal. It moved its hand across Luna, altering the dream that now tormented her and, consequently, all the other ponies in the vicinity. As the new dream took hold, Luna's movements became more intense, whatever it was had such a powerful effect on her that she yelled. In her last dream, she had seen the same emblem on the walls of buildings along a street that seemed strangely familiar. She heard a voice say, "No, please don't," and turned to see that a human was sprinting down the street in her direction. His spine arched as he took only a few feet before collapsing face first into the asphalt with a knife stuck in his back. The person behind him who had thrown the sword was visible as he fell. Luna let out a horrified yell, but before she could act, she took in the scene. Bodies were all over the street, many of them with throwing weapons protruding from them. A new voice screamed, "Take this, you traitorous bastard!" She glanced up in time to see 3 more people rush the enigmatic figure. They were all hit as the person leaped into the air above them and threw a cloud of shuriken before they could take any action. She was so scared that she was unable to move and was breathing heavily as the figure landed in front of her with its back to Luna. It then started to gently turn around. She was filled with horror upon seeing the face of Itachi Uchiha, the guy who had just slaughtered 4 men like wheat before a scythe. Itachi was standing above the bodies of a man and a woman, staring over them at a young boy who had a striking likeness to Itachi, as the scene changed to the room she had not been able to view in her previous dream. Tears streamed down the boy's cheeks as he gasped out, "Why, big brother? Why did you kill mother and father? Why did you kill our whole clan?" Itachi said a single phrase before gently opening his eyes. "To measure my abilities." Luna shouted because she couldn't stop wanting the scenes that were playing in front of her to stop. "What did you do?" Itachi questioned, his face laced with worry. "Oh, nothing," Nightmare said, "I'm just showing them a little tidbit from your past." He inquired, which one, even though he already knew the answer, he just needed to hear it for himself. His eyes expanded, but not that much. "The one that torments you with guilt every waking moment of your life. You fucking bastard." Itachi screamed as his eyes snapped open, his anger growing inside him. He would make this monster pay a heavy price for what it had done. The scene around Nightmare twisted and blurred, and its eyes widened as it felt something take hold. Everything in this place was either black or white, and Nightmare was confined to a wooden cross of some kind, unable to move, as the sky whirled until it was nothing but black clouds soaring across a red sky. Itachi was standing in front of him with a blade. "I wonder how long you can resist," he said, stabbing Nightmare in the stomach. Nightmare let out a scream as it experienced pain, a terrible, unbearable ache that made it long for the end, something it had not experienced in thousands of years. However, it didn't. Upon opening its eyes again, the wound had disappeared, but the agony persisted, and two Itachis were now in front of it. As he stabbed Nightmare, one murmured, "In the world of Tsukuyomi, I control time." The second attacked it as well, adding, "Even the mass of objects. You will be stabbed with a sword for the next 72 hours, I wonder how long you can stand it." Thousands and thousands of stab wounds later, and it felt like days. "There are 71 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds left," Itachi said again. As more than 100 Itachis came closer, Nightmare screamed in fear. That whole thing was 1 second. Itachi was ruthless and used the genjutsu in a way that was far more advanced than anything he had ever done. At about 8 months, Nightmare's mind was undoubtedly shattered, but it had done nothing to merit the pity it requested. In Nightmare's broken psyche, Itachi terminated the genjutsu and fell to one knee. Holding his hand over his left eye, he watched as Nightmare's shape in Luna's head exploded in a high-pitched, keening scream. It was very frightening, or at least it would have been if he hadn't been making Nightmare to scream like that for the previous year. Pulling himself back to reality, Itachi saw again the bright white marble floor of Celestia's throne room underneath him. He had no strength to stand and was on his knees. He was panting fiercely, with one hand clamped over his left eye and the other resting on the ground for support. Even though he had overexerted himself, he had succeeded in his task and Nightmare was no longer there, at least not for the time being. Even though he had put in a great deal of work, Itachi knew that a mind like Nightmare's couldn't be totally destroyed, but it would return soon. Meanwhile, Itachi felt he needed to leave this place before the nearby ponies woke up. He rose up and began to stumble toward the balcony out of sheer willpower. It was possible that Nightmare had been lying when it claimed to have showed him his slaughter of the Uchiha clan. However, Itachi didn't see any hint of dishonesty in Nightmare when it informed him that he had been misled by specialists and those who had built their lives on it. He eventually made it outside, trembling with fatigue as he steadied himself by onto the railing. He wondered if he could survive such a fall in his current condition as he peered out over the edge to gauge the distance. As he leaped over the edge, Itachi recalled the glances he had received from every ninja he had ever seen: fear, scorn, and hatred, the only things he had ever seen in any shinobi's eyes since that fateful night. He concluded it didn't really matter because it was his only way out. He could have finally been able to move on from the decision he had made all those years ago, but instead he found himself here, where it still haunted him, even on a different planet. How were these ponies supposed to comprehend? They have never had to make a decision like I did, they have never seen sorrow or battle, he thought to himself as he started to fall. Itachi wished he would never have to tell them. But life isn't always that easy. Itachi started to tumble, but he abruptly halted. He started to drift back upwards after realizing he was floating in midair. Oh no, he hadn't been fast enough. As he drifted up onto the balcony once more, he noticed that the faces of the 6 elements of harmony were all terrified of him. Celestia, clearly rattled by their experience with Nightmare and the events they had been forced to see, gazed at Itachi with nothing but rage as he floated above their heads into the throne room. But it was Luna's face that caught his attention. Tears were streaming down her cheeks as she gazed at him, not out of hate, fear, or disdain, but out of sadness. The one word she whispered, "Why?" went straight to the core of Itachi's being.